It's been a while, huh? Yeah, but I didn't forget about it. I just got very busy working on something new, which is not what I'm going to talk about today. We're going to talk about a topic that I've been wanting to cover for a while, but I kind of postponed it because it was difficult for me to bring it up in a way that would be satisfying for me, yet remaining completely authentic and truthful to what I'm trying to do in here. I think there's so much content that is completely rehearsed, written, AI generated online, that the absolute line I don't want to compromise on is providing something that is very honest and genuine. This is also why sometimes I look rough, sometimes I look like this. I'm not on purpose trying to prepare things. I'm really getting to a flow and I'm stop talking. The topic of today is what I call the students of the wall, right? So the kind of people who are having basically a single way of learning, which is the most painful and difficult way ever. Let me get into this. Everybody learns in a slightly different way, right? And if you go through schools, you probably go and get frustrated. Some people get frustrated because it's a bit of a one-size-fits-all kind of approach to education in most places. Although you do have different kinds of schools around the world, different stages, elementary and younger education and more senior post high school degree, post adulthood, kind of like college, universities kind of things, right? But we have, a different way of actually learning things. Learning is the greatest skill that I was taught on early on in my life. And it was drilled into my mind day one of, software engineering school. And I remember vividly what the teacher told us back then. He says, whatever you know today, you're going to have forgotten in 6 months from now, right? So you really got to be focusing on learning how to learn rather than anything else. So the topic is pretty dear to me and a skill that I think I have a very good grasp on. Probably people may be better than me, definitely people worse than me. And we're going to talk to some of the people who are worse than me, which I call the students of the wall. In your way of learning things, you can simplify this in many different ways. You can put your learning approach on a single, you can simplify it on a single line where you learn by someone just teaching you one thing right there. They just tell you, if you do this, this happens. And then right there, you learn it and you run with it and you accept it as it is. You reject all of that and you have to go through all the pain yourself on every single aspect, every single detail, every single time. The students of the walls are people who are on this side of the spectrum. Now, for anybody that is in the middle and trying to kind of understand where you are, you want to get closer to that line, but not really at the very edge, because you want to maintain your critical thinking. You want to be maintaining your ability to create new things. You want to be, also understanding that sometimes when you're being taught how to do something, that's because it's how it used to be done. And there's probably a way to do something differently, something better, and that's worth exploring. But you kind of still want to be converging toward this line here. Now, some people you're going to have to just try to create for them what a friend of mine calls spiritual journey, something that I tend to do. When you realize that you tell things 1, 2, 3, 4 times and they're not really receiving, they kind of want to see it, they kind of want to feel it themselves, you put them on a track of them being able to fail in a controlled manner. And it's not that you want them to fail, it's that if they're going to fail as they do things, the fail is going to be controlled, it's not going to be catastrophic, right? And this is, a great way. You learn through experience. Experience is the greatest teacher you can possibly have, and so might as well using it as much as possible. But experience can also be a very expensive lesson, and that's when you start crashing to what we're going to say wall, right? You really are hitting dead-on collision of something that you may not recover from, right? And I mean, like at a personal level, you can create all sorts of things like personal trauma, personal fears. You start having things that you don't want to do anymore because you have these blocker. These things are very relatable when you start diving into the crossword with ageism and some of the older people who, despite having a ton of experience, they also carry with them all of these traumas and all of these things that they avoid to do because it really hurt them in the past. So they're not trying these things anymore. And then, younger generations that, may not have this kinds of things, and they can be a little bit reckless. It really goes into this whole aspect. Developing a healthy relationships with the pain of learning is a whole other topic that is touching on what I'm talking about in here, but it is worth, understanding in separately. No, students of the wall are really people who are, they go through the pain once, they go through the pain twice, and they keep going. And what you realize is that this is literally the only way they will ever learn anything. They will just never listen to a third party. They rather fail with their own idea 1,000 times than winning with somebody else's ideas. And the reason why this is super important is because there's a lot more students of the walls in the world than you may think. A lot of people function this way. Now, you go around and when you're trying to understand the absurdity of this situation, because if I would have to create this analogy, it makes me think of something that happened when I was living in San Francisco. There's tons of crazy people in San Francisco, and this one time, this crazy guy managed to get into our building in the bit of the SAS. He passed the first gate, but not the second one. And he was like, standing in there, banging his head against the wall repeatedly, completely out of his mind. Police came over and took him out. But I see this person in this moment banging their head against the wall as the perfect embodiment of the absurdity that many, many, many of us see when they're working for or with students at the wall. They're saying like, why are you not learning from all these crashes that you've gone through? Why do you need to go through another one of these crashes, etc.? And this is why it's relevant when I mentioned about the pain, because at that moment, you got to self-check yourself. Again, I'm not going to dive into this topic, but you got to check yourself and see, is it your trauma that's telling you that this is not worth exploring, or are you actually objectively biased and unbiased, and this is an actual student of the wall that you're seeing in front of you? In most cases, there's a little bit of both. In my personal experience, it's usually kind of like an 80-20 distribution. 20% trauma from the past, 80% really, objectivity and unbiases towards people who are really students of the wall. And people go around. So it's like, okay, so why is this absurd situation happening? Is it hubris? Is it, ego? Is it narcissism? Is it thing? And I'm going to tell you, it's probably a bit of everything, but it's actually completely irrelevant. As a general note in my life, I spend way too much time trying to understand the underlying causes of things. And that's because I made a mistake that a lot of people do, is that you can outsmart your way to success. Micro success, getting my task done today, bigger success, your career things, and lifetime achievements, etc. But you really can't. There is no need to just try to crack the entire thing, and trying to understand and being able to dissect the problem to the nth degree isn't necessarily going to be helping you on how to resolve this whole thing if you're capable of understanding the situation for all of what is presented in front of you at that moment is all priced in. Doesn't matter why you're a student of the wall. What matters is that you are one. And you got good enough at understanding and managing your own biases that you can identify one very quickly and then get into the what am I going to do about it moment, because that's the part that's very relevant. Now, the first thing is that it really depends on the kind of relationship you have with that person. Now, if you are the student of the wall, now the chances of you watching this video is very slim. I don't advertise these kinds of things. They go into very private circles, but the chances of you watching this is very slim already, but the chances of you being self-aware that you are a student of the wall are ridiculously slim. Because it's kind of a moment where, I don't know if you've heard about this, there's a very interesting historian, her name is Sarah Payne. I'm going to quote her again and again because she's brilliant. And she made a point very rightfully so that most dictators and evil characters that we have in the world act on the belief that they're doing the things right. And that's the exact same that happens with students of the wall. They're not doing this because they're nuts, because they're crazy. They're doing this because they think they're right. They believe they're right. They believe that this is the best way of actually doing everything. They're not doing this because they're masochist or they really like the pain or because they know it's going to be disruptive. They're doing this because they think it's right. Okay? So from this perspective, having the self-awareness as a student of the wall is extremely difficult. And you usually need to get past a point of pain that would probably point out in the bucket of the traumatic side for you to just get out of your zone and start exploring something different. Now, this particular trauma and the pain it can have really can come to anything. Trauma is not something universal on a scale. It's not like if you've gone through a physical hurt or injury, everybody gets trauma the same. Some people get traumatized over nothing. Some people get traumatized over many, many things, or like, a very large thing that happened to them, something very dramatic. But it could be that. And it could be, you could have your trigger being you're tired of spending your time and not evolving in your life. You look back at your 10 years of your life and realize you haven't gone really as far as you would like to. Or it can be that, someone you loved got killed in your stupidity in your, student of the wall moments. Doesn't really matter. Again, the same as what I was mentioning before. You are this person, very likely that you're self-aware, but if you are, you gotta let go. You gotta let go of trying to go through all the weeds, etc. It's a control problem. I'm not here to do psychology, but that's a control problem. So many people have control problems. What I mean by this is that they have to get in control of every single aspect, otherwise they do not trust any of the system, etc. talk to someone, talk to a therapist, bring that element to point of focus and see if it helps you. I'm not going to do that. That's not my job. That's not my role. That's not my expertise. But that's really what you're going to do. Now, for those of you who are working with people who are students of the wall, or those who are maybe, let's start with people who are seeing themselves getting more and more into the path of becoming students of the wall. Same kind of story. If you're seeing yourself getting in there, at least you have that self-awareness about it. Learn to let go. Learn to let go and learn to try to trust people from point-to-point basis. Find the confidence and the trust in some other area that you can actually find, so you don't find yourself in this whole crazy obsessive behavior that you would have in this, because again, it's the most expensive way to learn absolutely anything in time, in energy, in emotions, in every aspect that you can think of. Okay? And for those of you who are working with people who are students of the wall, fundamentally, there's three kind of categories in here. They report to you, their peers, you report to them. All right, so they report to you. You're going to have to try to manage this whole relationship and where all of this bias is coming. You're in a position of power. You're in a position where you can actually influence where things are going. So, try to actually delegate and, remove things from them. Try to control the situation as much as possible. Back to the spiritual journeys I was saying, make walls, make them small. Make them small so that people can learn progressively where things are going. Create their circumstances as much as you can for them to see that there's other ways to learn so they can actually progress out of this whole thing. Now, as I'm saying this, I know that there's people who are going to be thinking like, wow, this is way too much work. I'm not putting up with this whole thing, etc. And I'm not going to bring this particular point again and again in everything that I'm saying and everything that I'm writing and everything that I'm putting together, because I know that there is a lot of what I am preaching is very, very demanding for the managers, for the leaders who are going in. It's a lot of extra work. And many people just don't want to have to spend that time. They would spend that time on something else. I will never disagree with that stance. But if you have it in you to do that, then this is what you would do. But in practical reality, my advice for you is get everything that you have to get done and spend 80% of your energy on the 20% of people in your organizations who are moving the needles. And those who aren't really willing to carry themselves, that they're going to be left behind. That's the very simple nature of where things are going. You just simply do not have enough time or resources to actually being able to pull everybody up. This isn't school. This isn't about this. You're here to create an opportunity to actually get people to prove and demonstrate what they have in them, not to carry them on your shoulder to the finishing line, all hundreds of them they may have. Now, if they're peers, now that can be a little bit more tricky. You lose that influence, and that becomes what kind of peer do you have? What kind of relationship? Same playbook, different kinds of potential results that you would have, because maybe they listen to you, maybe they're a close friend to you, maybe they're not, maybe they hate your guts. And then depending on where you are, you're going to find yourself either closer to the playbook I'm give you, but if they report to you, and the playbook I'm about to give you if you report to them. So let's talk about this. If you report to them, run away. Just run away. Just run away. I mean, or do what so many people are doing, which is the same. It's like either your body and your mind is running away, or your mind is running away, but you're running away. If you stay in an environment and realize that systematically your leadership is making decisions that are about hitting the wall as hard as possibly can, never listens to anybody, never considers any other approach, is not intellectually, emotionally connected or available to receive any kind of other feedback, so it's going to be wall for morning, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, then what you're going to do one of two things. You're going to switch off. You're going to start saying like, all right, this for lunch we're having a wall, and you're going to go with it. You're basically physically here, but not mentally here. You're checked out. Everybody knows what that means, etc., etc. I'm going to go back on this point in a minute. Or you just run away physically. You resign, you move on, try your luck in another company. But there's so many students at the wall everywhere. So it is not necessarily a practical thing to do. That's why a lot of people just check out. They're thinking like, I'm not going to be going into another company just to see another flavor of the same thing. So I'm just going to be just dragging along, collect my paycheck, and enjoy my life. The problem about that last point, and I know, boy, it's a popular take to have on the internet, especially these days. A lot of people think that working is pointless, etc. It is just, enriching rich people and all this different stuff. And I see where people are coming from with it. It's hard to fully disagree. It's not the earth is flat argument, where it's not complete lunacy and not grounded in any truth. But it's not capturing the whole story either. Work is something that is fulfilling you as a person. It might not be fulfilling you right now, what you're doing. It may not be fulfilling you in the context that you're in. It may not be fulfilling you in any way. You may have taken a career from the very beginning that has represented the entirety of your experiences work as something that is not fulfilling. You just do your work, go home, and that's it. It's very, very, very possible. It's very, very, very common. Because when you make your decisions about what job to take, you're doing it too young, you don't have enough experience, you don't have the light of enough elements, and then life carries on and you have all these responsibilities you need to take care of first, and then you do what you can, so you get on with it. If you end up in this pot, it is what it is. Personally, I feel for you. If you're happy, all the better. But I know there's something better behind. There's something really, truly fulfilling about working on something that is a serious project. I'll live and die on the hill of a happy person is a person with a project, and work gives you a project. That doesn't mean you're not going to work with idiots. That doesn't mean you're not going to have abusive relationship. That doesn't mean any of these things, but it's worth pursuing. And it's so much worth pursuing that even if you have been checked out for many years and you suddenly, give your chance and decide to just move on to something else and find this project, it's going to make you forget about all these years that you spent being checked out and not really doing anything, etc. It's not even about the money. I don't even think the money is the best motivation you can have from work. I think the project that is making you happy is what matters. And I'm very well aware, again, about all the things that can take that away from you. Students of the Wall being a big one of them. So if you got to check out, you check out. But, my advice to you is, if you're going to check out mentally, always keep an eye about, checking out physically and then moving on into a place that's going to allow you to be or to do what you would like to do. It's a crazy matchmaking effort to find jobs. It's a crazy matchmaking effort to find people. I'm very, very, very well aware of it, but that's very much worth doing. Because the reality is that, when you deal with people like this, with a student of the wall, again, I put this it's a very strong category and cliche of people. You are a student of the wall if you really are only going to be learning from hitting the wall, right? There's tons of people who can be stubborn, they can have persistence or anything like this, but that's not what they are. Now, a student of the wall is a really category of people who are just hell-bent on crashing to learn anything. And that's really just a waste of time in any way, shape, or form. So, give it your shot, understand the situation. The faster you do it, the better, and then move on with your life. You're just not going to be changing people like this. If you do, good for you. I don't think it's worth the time and the effort you're going to be putting into it.